Hello, I'm Theolyn. Welcome back to my series, Meditation, Mysticism, Metaphysics, Magic. This is the second episode, and the first one was about meditation, and I strongly recommend you watch that first if you haven't already seen it. So, mysticism, or mystical stuff. What do we mean by that word? Well, as we can see, mysticism is closely associated with the idea of mystery. So a mystic, we could say, is somebody who wants to explore the mysteries of life, the mysteries of the universe, perhaps. Sometimes the word mystical is substituted by the word spiritual. When I studied experiences for my master's degree, sometimes people use the word mystical experience, sometimes spiritual experience, sometimes religious experience. But what we're talking about here is the journey, the mystical journey that begins when anybody starts asking questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? And so forth. And one route to answer some of those questions at an individual level would be to meditate. So we've talked about meditation, now we're talking about mysticism. And mystical traditions go back many thousands of years in recorded history. We could even say that what we've found as paintings in caves, thousands and thousands of years old, are also describing mystical kind of experiences. But we do know from fragments of texts left to us by esoteric teachers going back before the birth of Christ that people were concerned in our culture, the beginnings of our culture, they were very concerned about being in touch with some kind of inner wisdom, and that would inform them on how to live their lives, their everyday lives. And throughout the centuries, mysticism has had these different metaphors that all work quite well, even though they seem to be kind of opposites. We have what we call introverted mysticism and extroverted mysticism. The introvert goes deep within using a meditation technique. The eyes are closed, the senses are cut off. The Greeks had something that they called an incubation, where they were kind of wrapped up, a bit like a bear in its lair, hibernating, so that they closed themselves off from the world in order to experience something deep. We might think of a flotation tank, sensory deprivation. Then the extroverted mystic experiences being at one with the cosmos by looking outward, experiencing the world through the senses. We have in the English language the poets by the Romantics, who are sometimes called nature mystics because they experienced the beauty of the cosmos through the natural world that they were walking in. And some mystics will talk about viewing the stars at night and feeling at one with the cosmos. So the mystical journey can go inward and it can go outward. And it can go upwards and it can go downwards. Many mystical traditions talk about ladders, or a tree of life, for example. And the ladder can be climbed. The human can climb up the ladder to a higher state of awareness, almost like becoming an angel when you get to the top, or can come down the ladder, and the angel can come down to the earth and wrestle with the human being, as in the story of Jacob's ladder. On the other hand, the Jewish mystics thought of the tree of life as an opportunity for descending into God, not ascending into God. And that's an interesting difference. It's the one I prefer myself, because descending makes me feel more grounded, like, yes, I'm in this. I'm not climbing a ladder into some Sistine Chapel ceiling with blue clouds and blue skies, and the clouds are white with pink edges, aren't they? But I'm not going up there and beyond this earthly being. I'm descending and finding God within, finding God in the everyday as well. Saint Teresa of Avila famously said to her nuns when they were doing the chores, don't forget God is in the pots and pans as well. So being present to what is around you with your eyes open can give you an extroverted mystical experience. Meditating, going deep within, using, well, in the Schaefer method you use what I call a zera, but any kind of repetition of a sacred utterance can take you within, and you can consider that as an expansion or a retraction. So you've got these in, out, up, down, open, close. All of those metaphors can refer to mystical experience. So seeing the cosmos in the night sky, or seeing heaven in a grain of sand, or Julian of Norwich said, like a little nutshell in her palm of her hand, she was shown, God told her everything is in that. Everything is in that. So getting that experience, wherever it comes to you from, whatever process you're engaged with, which opens you, closes you, helps you ascend or descend, helps you look out into the world with new perspective, helps you go inward to discover the power within. All of those directions are connected with the mystical experience. Not one of them, but all of them. However, one can say that just by engaging with one of them will allow the others to evolve in your life. By becoming a meditator and doing the inward work, the inward descent, I had very profound experiences out in the natural world when I was walking around. I wasn't even thinking about meditating, and all of a sudden, whoa, this sense of being at one, looking up into those clouds, those blue skies, and feeling, whoa, I am part of this. And there's something powerfully holistic going on. And that only happened because I did the meditation in my quiet room with my eyes closed. So that's all part of the mystical journey. And the mystics have these expressions that we notice as we go through the literature, like the one I mentioned in the meditation program, the peace that passeth all understanding. And then there's the cloud of unknowing, a sense of being enfolded in something, but it's you can't know it. You can get a glimpse of it. And another famous line is, now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. So that teacher was saying we can only see glimpses of the huge reality of the divine. And then we get an opportunity under certain circumstances to actually know it intimately, face to face. And the divine knows you, and you know the divine, and you recognize each other. You recognize yourself as divine. And the divine is saying to you, yes, 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 that is who you are. Early on in my quest, I came across a book, which has still got on my shelves. I think I got it in the 70s, by a man called Arthur Gurdon. And you may have heard of him if you've been interested in reincarnation, because he wrote a book about the Cathars. This particular book is called Man, Divine or Social. Of course, nowadays he wouldn't be allowed to use that title because he just lumped everybody together under the word man. But we could say human. Is a human divine or social? And that was what he was asking in his book. And from my perspective, we are divine, but we are also social. We cannot get away from the incarnated being that we are. We have to engage with the social and relational side of being human. So when we have our divine experience, we don't escape from the process of living. Famous saying, of course, is before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And when we become meditators, what we do is we bring both the divine and the social together, and the social will be enhanced by our attention that we pay every day, twice a day, to the divinity within. So they're not two separate things. It's not one thing or the other. However, what was true in that book was the commentary that if you pay attention all the time to the social and you neglect the divine, then you can lose your way in life and you can end up with a life that's really not at all satisfactory because it's not whole. It's only partial. I've often described the divine and the social as being like two horses in your stable, and you've got a cart and you want to take that cart out into life to negotiate your way through the ins and outs of being a human being in a culture where you have to do buying and selling and all those kind of activities. And you've got a cart, but you only use one horse. You just use your social horse to pull the cart for you. And how much more effective that would be if you went back to the stable and you called up the divine horse and you put them side by side in the cart and you ask them to take you to market. So think about this deeply, because it's really important for how you live your life individually and how we live our lives collectively, in communities, in the wider social order. And the big changes that are going on at this present time may kind of seem like an overwhelming tsunami of change, immense change. And of course, if you have any astrological knowledge, you can see that the gods of change are bumping up against each other and telling the human race, kind of, it's time for a big upheaval. And how it pans out will depend on individual human beings like you and me. So take it seriously. Think about meditating. Obviously, I recommend my own Schaefer method, which I believe is a really powerful tool, which will take you to deeper states of consciousness. And I also believe that those deeper states of consciousness give us access to our individual potential and to the capacity to create our own lives in a beautiful, satisfactory way, but also that we can contribute to the collective unfolding of the beautiful tapestry. I love to use that metaphor. It's like a tapestry that we're weaving and we're all involved. We can't escape from it. We can't not participate. Even if we don't think we're doing anything, we are all the time. So let's do it consciously. Add our threads to that tapestry and be satisfied with what we've offered to the whole. Many blessings. And if you want to find out more about the Schaefer method, go to schaefermethod.com, where there's a webinar, a bit longer than this chat, but I think you'll find it interesting. I'll see you again for metaphysics coming down the line very shortly.